Welcome back to What's Going News. This week, the big thing was a Q&A with Gaijins, a CCO, Russian dude. But there were also some smaller stories that were important to cover. So be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm going to start off with the Q&A that lasted about an hour and was live streamed from Gaijins' YouTube channel. If you have already seen it, there will be timestamps in the comments to skip to the other parts of the video. Now, of this Q&A, I'm not going to go over every single question. I'm not going to go too much in depth with them because I don't want this to be an hour-long video, as the Q&A was an hour long. And despite this supposed to be the tough questions of War Thunder, some of these questions were kind of garbage, although a good amount of them were quite aggressive, so I'll be going over those ones. A final disclaimer is that I'm not going to be reading the questions verbatim. One of my Discord mods transcribed the Q&A, so I'm going to be using that as a reference, and it's not word for word, but it covers the basic idea of the question. So first off was a very aggressive question about adding top tier premiums, and they had two excuses for this. One is that there is a new top tier battle rating 10.3, so it's not technically top tier, which in my opinion is BS, but I guess they are technically correct. The other one is that they give people with money an ability to play a different game style. What I haven't been too upset about with the top tier premiums is I don't play top tier, but also the top tier experience is much different than the mid area where it's World War II stuff and early Cold War. The top tier is more modern stuff, and the audience that wants modern tanks doesn't necessarily want to play through early war, World War II, early Cold War. However, as of recently, they kind of, in my opinion, stepped over the line with the 10.0 helicopters, especially because back when the first 10.0 premium helicopter was added, 10.0 was the top. And then when they add some more, they decided to increase the battle rating by 0.3, which apparently now means that there's totally mega difference. It's not top tier. You can't complain now, guys. Although perhaps the silver lining is that all the people who want to pay to win are going to buy the top tier vehicles in the battle ratings that I don't play, so I can enjoy my World War II and early Cold War vehicles perfectly fine, undisturbed. Next question I care to cover is about the Battlefield Engineers event. Somebody was asking why they do them despite nobody liking them, and Gaijin's reply was that the events are optional, and if you don't like it, don't play it. There was a little note about how the last Battlefield Engineers event, some things would have to change. At least that's what I picked up. The dude's English isn't the best, though I congratulate him on being able to speak it to begin with. There was a question asking why they use repair costs to balance vehicles, and their initial answer was that they don't use repair cost to balance vehicles, and that the repair cost is set with the earnings of a vehicle. However, if you think about it, a vehicle that earns a lot, like say a tank that gets a lot of kills, gets you a lot of silver lions, is going to go have a high repair cost. So maybe indirectly, they are balancing vehicles with repair costs. Perhaps a better way they could deal with this is to decrease the earnings of a vehicle, not increase its repair cost. The next question was about DR decompression, when that's going to happen. And the answer, they're saying that battle ratings are very specific to individual vehicles. For example, a 5.0 US tank wouldn't be the same as a 5.0 German tank. Are there even any 5.0 German tanks? And that facing the same tank would be boring. First of all, no one's actually asking to face the same tank as you are driving in. And for the rest of his answer, it does sound right and make sense. However, I think they are ignoring the fact that in certain parts of the game, the compression is way more intense. And it's not just slightly, oh, this tank's slightly better for you, but it makes the game interesting. Is this tank is actually designed to counter your tank in every way, so you are going to lose. As an example would be around the 7.0 area, there's a lot of late war heavy tanks and early Cold War heavy tanks that are immediately put up against Heat FS, which was designed to counter heavy, slow tanks. And I think a perfect example of this is actually the T-32E1, which is at 7.7, right below the M103, which is also 7.7, and 100% better in just about all fields of combat. And both of these tanks go up against a large amount of Heat FS. There was a question from Fly Daily asking for essentially new game modes, and he even proposed one in the question that was a lot like the Rush game mode from the Battlefield series, where the attacking team would want to capture the defending team's points, and once they captured the first set of points, the defending team would be moved back to a further objective elsewhere in the map that would be unlocked. And the objective of the defending team was to run the attacking team's tickers down to 0, and the objective of the attacking team was to capture all the defending team's points. Gaijin's reply to this game mode suggestion was that some people wouldn't like it and leave the game immediately, but the funny thing is there are plenty of people who don't like the current Cap the Magic Circles game mode that we've had for years. I say, hey Gaijin, why not take a gamble? Take a little risk. They did seem open to the idea of having it as an event game mode for a bit. That'd be fun. However, no one would play it because no one plays event game modes unless there's some sort of prize. Also, there was a comment from the dude about how it would require more teamwork. No one in War Thunder cares about the team. I would, however, contest that. I played plenty of Battlefield 3. I've never actually played that game mode. Well, I played it a bit, and teamwork wasn't required, but it helped. Next question was very direct and kind of funny. Replace the German BMP-1 with the BMP-1A1 to avoid copy-paste. And the answer was, okay. That's literally all it is. They went on to the next question. I personally don't know the difference between the BMP-1 and the BMP-1A1. I guess I could go read Wikipedia. But I wonder if they're actually going to change the vehicle or just change the name. There was a question about a Australian server, which would be great for Australia. However, they said no because there's not a big enough player base in Australia. Although, if you think about it, maybe there's not a big enough player base in Australia because the connection to Australia is awful and no one wants to play the game. Maybe if they had a dedicated server, they would be more into it. Then there was a question about if a server with a higher tick rate would fix ghost shells, and they said no because it's caused by lag and not tick rate. Although that sounds a bit suspicious to me, is every player who's complaining about ghost shells, which seems to just be about everyone, is because they have a poor internet connection. Then there was a question that they answered very poorly. Well, it was kind of asked a bit poorly too, but essentially they were asking, are World War II vehicles going to fight World War II vehicles and not Cold War vehicles? And their answer was no, like literally. What they really meant by that was that the game's not completely focused about World War II, it's actually just about vehicles in general. This answer was really bad. Really what they should have said is that just because a tank is from the 1940s does not mean that it's worse than tanks further in time or better than tanks that came earlier in it. Some examples could be like the Mouse. Oh wait. Well, I guess in the reverse would be like the ASU-57. That's a Cold War tank, but no one complains that it's at 4.3 because it's awful compared to what else came in 1950s. Then there's a request for more World War II stuff. I think the constant demand for more World War II thing is a very interesting position that we need to take a look at. I think I could dedicate the whole video to that because it's not just that people want tanks from World War II. Well, they do. It's a historical interest. But also a lot of it, I feel, is because a lot of the Cold War stuff is full of BS. Every tank has relatively the same weak spots, either the gun breech or the sides. They all shoot high penetrating APFSDS or heat shells. They have extremely high velocity. It can snipe you from across the map. Night vision's BS. Helicopters are BS. Now, there is a good number of people who like that stuff. You can see that from all the top tier premium sales, but there's also a good number of people who have no interest in any of those things. And I think that's more the divide than the dates on the vehicle. The next interesting question was about flares for top tier jets, and they said someday. Now here's the thing though, is I'm pretty sure all the jets that we have in game currently were not armed with flares. Maybe the F-4s or some of the MiGs had flares. I'm not sure. I would have to look into that. However, I'm pretty sure just about all of them did not have any flares, so that just goes down to realism. And somebody asked about door gunners for helis, and they said probably yes. However, I still doubt that it's going to come. Would be really cool though. Then there's a question on why add top tiers like the Ka-50, and the reply was that it's not top tier anymore. The game is always changing, developing. Adding a 0.3 BR does not make the Ka-50 not top tier anymore. But the other part of the answer, game is always developing, can add some light at the end of this tunnel. Perhaps they have plans to add much higher battle ratings. Then there was a question about the cross-platform, which I feel this game desperately needs, and unfortunately the situation seems to have not changed since the last time I reported on it. It's all a confusing legal battle. Then there was a question about how does Gaijin get information on classified tanks, and their response was that the information actually isn't classified. Now, what I'm pretty sure they actually do to get information on things like the M1A2 is they don't have documents from the US government saying, oh, this is how much armor protection it has, is they actually use estimations that countries and companies make. Like for example, Russia probably doesn't know actually how much the M1A2 can resist things, but they have most likely good estimations based on tests or whatever they've done on their own. And if you know where you're looking, you can find out this information. Essentially what I'm saying, it's all based off estimates. Then there was a question about improving airfield AA against jets, and I gotta say it is actually pretty easy to zoom past an airfield and kill a downed jet. However, I very much oppose the idea of improving airfield AA because I hate people who base camp to such a degree agree that I would actually prefer if there was no AA in the game at all. If you have to land, you failed your mission to kill the enemies, and if they happen to spot you landing, well, sucks for you. A very disappointing answer for the question, are they going to add napalm or cluster bombs? And it's a no for both of them, mainly because napalm and cluster bombs are mainly for infantry, and those aren't in the game. However, I could see cluster bombs as being useful against lightly armored tanks. A lot of actually modern tanks have really low roof armor, so cluster bomb might actually be pretty useful against them. It also looked cool, and also what I'm hoping for the most, Japan had these really interesting anti-bomber bombs. Essentially it was you'd fly past the bomber, drop the bomb, and it would be made of white phosphorus. It'd explode and it'd light the enemy bomber on fire. And it was used, and I believe successfully, at least once. The final question of the English Q&A that I felt was necessary was if they're going to improve the quality of the clouds. And they said they have plans to, but though the clouds currently take up a lot of performance power, in fact the most apparently. Now the question of the clouds has always been weird because a long time ago the clouds actually looked different, and then they updated the cloud engine, I guess you'd call it. And when it's like that got worse, they changed. In certain aspects they looked amazing, but in other aspects they looked terrible. So there's definitely a lot of room to improve on the current clouds. Now, you would probably assume there wasn't only just an English Q&A, there was also a Russian one. However, I felt it would be much to ask somebody to go and transcribe the entire hour-long interview, but there were some questions that I could just Google Translate. And one of them, while quite cryptic, was pretty interesting. It was in the comments of the announcement page, and it was kind of stacked together with some other less interesting questions. But it went along the lines of, can there be a long time before tanks, a pre-pori, to give fire extinguishers and repair kits? And the answer was, fire extinguishers and repair kits are pumpable models, and I can't say for sure what the fate awaits them. So perhaps, maybe in the end, we won't have to research basic materials for vehicles anymore. That's generally all the questions. If I can find a way to translate the Russian Q&A, I might make a video on that. I'm really glad Gaijin decided to do a quite aggressive Q&A, even if some of these answers were quite obvious. A piece of criticism I would levy is that maybe next time give us some more time to prepare better questions. Like, announce it a week prior, and then we'll have plenty of time to think of all the interesting things in the world. Now, as I was saying earlier, that is not all the news for this week. There was some interesting things going on in the forums. It seems the store team dude got punked. So on the forums, Fedman Kasads made a post saying, hey, Stavrophoros, did you know that Gaijin gonna add the Mirage in the next patch? Crazy, isn't it? And store team dude comes in saying, we aren't, don't make false statements, please. So he took the bait. We got some information out this. The Mirage is not coming in 1.95, unfortunately. He later made the statement, I saved you from many pages of useless speculation while waiting for devlogs to come. I should remind everyone an obvious thing. Our aircraft guys are fully loaded with upcoming Swedish tree and won't have much time for other nations in 1.95. There will be some, of course, but not many at all. And then somebody asked, okay, so no Mirage. However, how about Jaguar, F-104s, F-4s? Could we see those perhaps? And the answer was nope. And someone asked when Swedish tanks are coming out, and the answer is essentially next year. However, that's a given anyways, since 1.95 is about aviation. Next year is a pretty broad time frame though. And then spotted by Grim Cypher, a post by a developer in a thread about helicopter EC. Most of the post doesn't really matter. However, the important part comes in the second paragraph. It says, if you're talking about adding helicopters to current EC, then you're wrong. It needs a lot small but important changes to current EC logic. I have plans for it, but I have no time for it right now because I'm busy with some tank ship locations, Malta Naval EC and Port Moresby Plain Naval EC, like Dover EC. Seeing as it's getting new locations developed for it, I'd say that Naval EC is a success. Now, if only they incorporate a way for tanks and planes that play major roles in the game mode, it could be really cool. There was a few things in the changelog. On the 5th of November, apparently 20mm and 57mm autocannons weren't reaching their maximum distance, and it's fixed now. The Type 74Gs had its night vision modification fixed to thermal images finally. A bunch of 8.0 spags now can explode when you delete their ammo. The Centurion family, it seems like all of them, their internal armor has been changed from rolled homogeneous to structural steel. And the BMP-3 had a frontal fuel tank that was unreasonably high protection and couldn't be penetrated by APFSDS, which has been fixed tanks now. Interesting bug there. On the 7th of November, some sort of bug that did something was fixed with the Striker. I can't understand what they're saying there. Quite a few things were fixed about helicopters, but I don't care about them. And the empty weight of the MiG-21 F-13 has been reduced by 600 kilograms. Also, there was a bunch of fixes to naval sounds, which will be great when I finally get some damn time to play Naval Enduring Confrontation when they have it and I'm not making videos. Speaking of which, somebody had a rebuttal to some of the things I was saying about heat FS in the last video I made. Someone who's often credible, I in physics, so I listened to what he said. And there's a few interesting facts. For one, the IT-1 actually does not have a fuse delay on its missile. It's commonly misconstrued as a delay, but it's actually something like for the first 150 meters, the gunner can't actually see the missile or something like that. However, there are plenty of other examples I could pick in game to show that Gaijin exclusively enforces realism. For example, SS-11s on helicopters are mouse aimed when they aren't mouse aimed on tanks. However, Iron Physical was more interested in enforcing the idea that Gaijin's nerf was actually indeed historical or realistic, which I will concede does seem to follow through. However, I still feel that it is unnecessary, as it does make quite a few tanks extremely worse than they used to be. For example, the Type 90, I don't think I'm going to take that thing out anytime soon. Mainly because the only other vehicle I have the research is the Type 16, and that thing isn't a Type 90 replacement. Like, Gaijin, come on! Japan needs more top-tier MBTs! I think a good compromise would be for these tanks that start with stock heat FS that now only pens 400, would be to lower their first APFS DS shell down to, say, rank 2 modifications, or even rank 1, would be much more reasonable. And that's all the news I have this week. Before I end the video, I'd first like to thank my YouTube members. I don't know how to pronounce this, and the internet isn't helping. Sukabliet, Mighty Peppers, Pointless Gunsinks, Perk You Up, and Waffly Joker 6. YouTube members get videos uploaded a little bit early, and they get a unique Discord role. So if you care to join them, hit that join button for $5 a month. If you've liked this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like the video, don't hit the like button. If you have any comments, concerns, or questions, you can hit me up down below in the comments or on my Discord. I make War Thunder weekly news videos every weekend. I make random videos throughout the week, and I stream on Saturdays. I also like to stream on Fridays on Twitch, so be sure to follow me there. Thank you for watching the video, and I hope you have a great day. In the terms of bonus news, recently Gaijin released a video titled SAB J29D and VL Finish Words War Thunder, and it's basically a trailer for these two planes. You can purchase them and get access to the Swedish tech tree next patch. It seemed really just like a late ad for 1.93. Like, come on Gaijin, that was last month. You're later than I am.